Hey, colonizer. I
How
had to do
you
it.
doing?
I had
How
to do
you
it.
doing?
Doing good,
But
brother.
no, my man, what's crazy is like a white supremacist and a Confederate aren't the same. I actually like historically speaking, the Confederates just a little bit more because we twisted the story. When you look into it, what they were about was the same thing we were about with the British. They said, "You're gonna take our gin, our clothes, our guns, our materials, and things we produce, and you're gonna tax us to buy it back? Oh hell no!"
I never really
that
thought
was
of it
one
that way.
thing that was one thing that a really good history teacher of mine taught me was that was a bigger context than slavery was. Slavery at the end of the war was like the biggest context because Abraham Lincoln needed to beat up the South, not only morally, but had to actually beat them like in a battle. And so when they started winning battles, they started releasing slaves. That's a part of why he did that was not only to help build the army, but it also was like a getting back at the South, like it was a tit for tat kind of thing.
Okay, so Lincoln was a bit petty.
He wasn't an abolitionist, according to history. He did the greatest work that any abolitionist could have hoped for, but he
Yeah.
was just a Republican, not an abolitionist of his time. Like he as a Republican of his time believed that all men are equal. He just wasn't an abolitionist. He wasn't this diehard fanatic who was going out there burning down plantations and freeing brothers. He wasn't like that. He was more or less like, we could do this civilly or not at all.
He wasn't. He wasn't Abraham Unchained. In other words, right?
And he wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like he was doing it necessarily for like all of the right reasons. It was a petty get back at the South, beat 'em morally thing. Like, well, we're going to free people in your end, but the North maintained slavery for quite a few years after the fact that the South eliminated it. And I truly believe that the
Okay.
South was hit much harder and they learned their lesson over time faster than the North did. This is why in modern America I say that the South is the new Canada because they ain't never treated me wrong for my race. Like Canada used to be like, we love everybody, we take everybody, we talk to everybody equally. But the Southerners I've met all have Southern hospitality. I've never met a Southerner who treated me wrong that was just hateful for it. Like if they were just like, I don't like people like you. And I'm like, okay, I know where you stand. I get it. It's a very clear, cut and dry line. But the Confederates were just like, I don't want to be taxed. I don't want to have to pay for goods I already have to pay for, that I already have to make, that I already have to do stuff. But that's just another historical look at it. That's just looking at it from what they were really frustrated about. And to be fair, the South, as far as even everything with Jim Crow went, like they were the first ones to give up those laws. And so I see that reflected in modern era in their attitude. I see that they were like beaten for what they thought they believed, and then but they're the nicest people. Like, I don't know. It's always somebody further north than Colorado or in Colorado that's got something heinous to say to me. You know what I mean? But then people from Texas are like, you's a
Interesting.
cool dude. Come shoot with me sometime at the range. I don't live in Texas, but if I did,
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I haven't really got I haven't really gotten a take like yours about that. So I appreciate that.
it's
we
just when you look at the historical context, that's a present context that isn't
Yeah.
addressed by many historians, and it should be. It's something worth noting. Like there was a lot of frustration with how the stuff they wanted to secede because they wanted their stuff. Whereas, like if you look at it, even the pictures kind of show you that. Look at the Union soldiers and look at the Confederate soldiers. The Confederate soldiers towards the end of the war, all of their clothes were beaten and tattered and like they looked like they were kind of starved and emaciated because they were. Anything they were producing was still getting back to the north, and so it was like, oh, okay, we really aren't gonna have goods. We aren't the uniforms we're making. They're stealing those. They're putting their patch on them. Like, oh, geez, like this isn't working for us. But yeah,
Uh,
it was a war of attrition, really, with the South. Like it was really just starving them out.
okay. Uh, Interesting. And I say interesting, like not to say I'm like completely uneducated about it, but I don't. I kind of just go with the narrative that you usually hear. You know what I mean?
Well, and like I'm black, of course, so I wanted to know more about like how these things happened, and like so I went out of my way to learn about it. Like I totally was, as a kid, I knew more about Malcolm X than other kids with Black History Month because we didn't talk about Malcolm X, we talked about Martin Luther. And I've always believed you
Mm,
never learn about a historical figure without learning about a contemporary to that historical figure, someone who maybe believes the opposite and maybe is like someone who was they've had a debate with or that they've had conversations with or letters and like they go back and forth. And I believe it's worth knowing who their contemporaries are because there are men in history like W.E.B. Du Bois, and I don't really like what he was about. But looking at other Black men around him in that same historical era, there were all sorts of other great men, in my opinion. Now, it's not to say someone can't think him or Malcolm X are great, per se. They can. That's awesome. I look at it and I'm like, I think that Martin Luther was great because not only was he a greater speaker than, say, Malcolm, in my opinion, but it was the tone, the delivery, the pain he felt. Like Malcolm, I feel like dissociated at some point from the pain of his people. And I think Malcolm X never did. I think Malcolm X saw it as I don't want my people's pain brought onto someone else. I
mm,
don't want my daughter to be the one pushing someone around who's white. Like when he said, I have a dream equal, he didn't say, I want my children to be above. He said, I want my children to be equal. Equality is just the
yeah.
baseline. And that's all it is. We can't be pushing each other around like we do in today's times. Like, and it's become a social norm to push each other around. And I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, do you know this is a fallacy? Like, you know that brothers and sisters used to buy brothers and sisters as slave owners, and not always, but commonly, they would buy their friends and family back and free them. But it wasn't always the case. A lot of times they bought just random people they didn't know or people they didn't like, and that was who they owned. And a cool statistic is that 1 in 10 Black Americans, like it's very rare, 1 in 10 Black Americans come from slave roots. The other 9 in 10 come from immigration roots.
I can see that. You know, I used to, I used to work with a guy that he's from Jamaica, and I didn't, you know, I referred to him as an African American because that's what I was told I had to do, and he's like, dude, I never set foot on Africa. You call me a black
Right,
man. Like, oh, okay.
right. A Black
So,
American, if you have to detail me for a police report, please use the word Black American. Like it'll at least let them know they're gonna have a whole color spectrum to look at from that point. They're gonna be like light skin black to dark skin black. Got it.
yeah, yeah. I just thought,
There's nothing wrong with describing a color, but there is something I feel weird about, like when people are like, but you're African American. I'm like, how do you know that? I'm like, I can't even trace my grandma or one of my great grandmas past a certain point. So how is anyone else tracing her past a certain point? You know what I mean?
yeah, that's a good. I want to cut you off for a second, but did you see the weed beater 420 said something to you? Did you catch that?
I be typing sometimes. I told him, hell yes, I'm gonna go check it out. But yeah, no.
Yeah,
We live in a very crazy society, and I feel like if we don't fix it, we're gonna go backwards from Martin Luther King's dream. And in one of my old videos, I'm like, the dream is lost, and I just felt sort of beaten up by the Black community, and I just wanted to throw my thoughts on it out there. Like, I'm
yeah,
like, y'all don't like me because I'm goofy cousin, I'm silly weird cousin, I like math. Like, I'm not the normal, just average, just brother who doesn't like. There's brothers out there that are no good. There's brothers out there that are good. I want to do things in my life. I don't want to be no good brothers.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. I worry about. I even am uncomfortable talking about it, but I worry about the idea of like, we all know about white supremacy, but I feel like some of these people that are out there, they're not trying to go for equality, but rather black supremacy.
Yeah.
And I
Yes,
get
and
comfortable saying
it,
as mostly white, as you can tell.
I
But
can't even talk about it too much, and how I even know about it is a whole wild story that I'll have to tell you in PM.
okay,
But like I can tell you that my experiences with a specific industry definitely led me to meeting people who actually think those things. And like, it's kind of disturbing, like how, and these aren't black people that think those things. These are like white people that think those things. And I'm like,
The white saviors.
oh, it's a step. I don't know if it's down or up. It's white savior something, but I don't know which direction up or down it is. I just thought I'd let you know though that like you on point, and like the fact that you even saw those creators in general and what they were doing, and like the fact you even had the thought in your mind, man, don't lose that thought, but don't like, I'm gonna say this, until we get everybody able to talk about it, don't talk about it too much because they'll come find you and be like, canceled, canceled. He dare
Yeah,
say we try. What institution of power? It's like, it's not about institutions of power. The institution of power they're abusing, and they don't want to admit this, is intimidation. They're abusing intimidation. We'll come burn your city. We'll come do this. That's not necessarily even the black community. That's a random coalition of teenagers from random communities saying we'll do those things on behalf of black people. I'm like,
huh.
I'm 28. I don't need a teenager to defend me. I don't need a teenager to stand up for me. I made good life choices. I had one run in with the law, and that set me all straight. That like it changed everything. I was like, a minor in possession of alcohol gets concealed. Cool. And then I never had trouble in my life again. It's harder to get anything concealed as an adult, and sometimes, depending on the crime, they won't. There's a
Right,
lot of first-time offenders; they'll just conceal the record, and it depends on the crime. If it was like a
right.
reckless endangerment charge, you're not getting it concealed. They're gonna hold that over your head everywhere you go.
Yeah, definitely feels like it. Yeah, for sure.
But no, man, you definitely are on point with the supremacy note. I'm just saying, keep it in the back of your mind when you see people like that, because like I don't want to say too much, but look at King Jaunty. I don't want to say too much and give him no airtime, but like look at his page and look at how he acts. That's not equality. That's acting like you're better. And I noticed it because of how they came at me. I wouldn't have noticed it probably if they hadn't come at me the way they had, but they all came at me like ugly, 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 calling me everything from Rocket. With yeah, everything. I'm here like you can't make Rocket Raccoon offensive. He's a Marvel character. Like he's a Marvel character, and like you just can't make that offensive.
Yeah, yeah. That was I saw. I came across that reference to you and what they were trying to do with it, and it was just like, wow, that's pretty sick.
Well, when I pointed out that she was abusing a dynamic in our community that goes back to a very old era in America, she
Yeah.
miscontextualized the hell out of it. So everyone in her audience, you're misquoting her. You're misquoting. I don't care. I was funny in my misquote. Like I intentionally misquoted her, and it was funny. And then I got serious. This is the thing people have to learn: is like if someone's joking and smiling, they playing. But the minute that all drops, they on a real note, and maybe you should be tuned into what they saying. Because when I was going in about what she said about my friends, that wasn't a game anymore. That was like, no, your lie is dangerous. Like she blocked me for that. I tried to post the videos, but my phone saves them to its backup when they don't post when you're blocked. So I
Oh,
just reloaded them, and I'm like, no, people need to see this because this is disgusting. Like, and I just didn't like the way she came at Cam Higby. I actually was in that live, and she wasn't far off in what she was saying there. She was telling him, I hope you don't have a black child. And I'm
nice.
like, that's not okay to tell anyone. Like,
Or
I it's so sad that race is what comes up first because it caused me problems as a youth. I hated white people, I hated black people. Then I came around and I just hated everyone equally. No, not really, but like, I mean, I just realized that there's like, in terms of how they treat people that they don't think that they're like gonna be cool with, there's no difference. It's the same words, it's the same treatment. There is
mm,
absolutely no difference. And that's what I've experienced being mixed is like, if a white person's gonna be shitty, they're gonna say the same thing to me they'd say to a black person. If a black person's gonna be shitty, they'd say the same thing to me they'd say to the white person.
yeah, that's a good point. They do tend to. That tends to be when they start treating you equally. Is when they treat you equally as trash.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's about the only treatment equal you get from them. But that's what bugs people too that are like that. I can spot it. When I'm out with my girlfriend and I see people how they look at us, I can see when people are uncomfortable by a biracial couple. That's where when Good Trouble tells me this is a white supremacy sign. No, it's not. It's this. This look, when you're a black man or a white man with a black woman, vice versa,
Yeah.
that look tells you everything you need to know. That person doesn't feel comfortable with you being with a white person they don't even know. They don't even know the white person that you're around, and they don't feel comfortable with you being around them. Like, hold on, wait a minute, what? That's not your safety. That's not your life, you know?
No, none of their business.
Amen.
Jeez.
Amen. Shit, I'm gonna finish these dishes though, and I'm gonna get that done. But I just thought I'd hop in. You cool dude. And I'm just saying, like, we all have different experiences. I think
Sure.
because comes up so much, it plays a factor now for everyone, and we all want it not to. That's where we all want to go back to 2012, where we could just pop on a song and everyone could stitch it, duet it, and dance with us. We just want the dance party back.
10 years ago, right? Yeah, man.
Oh man, 10 years ago, we just want the dance party back. That's all. We were there. We were at that point where, like, yeah, there were people saying racist things. You're never going to get rid of it entirely. That has to be accepted. But we can call it out when it's legit, when we actually see it. Like, I think that the George Floyd could have been a two-ended discussion that would have been beneficial if we discussed the police end and the black community end, but we didn't discuss either end, and everyone's like, just defund. It's like, no, we don't defund over that. That demands training. What I saw there was a lack of police training.
Oh yeah, I can definitely agree with that. You know.
But that's me. I'm gonna head back to these dishes. You're awesome. And I
You.
just, when possible, I like to throw in those other perspectives, because a lot of people are white saviors, and like they do the thing where they're like, I gotta use my white privilege. And I'm like, let me in, tag me in, tapping in.
I appreciate you coming on. It was good. It was a good discussion, and I got some stuff to think about, especially with what you're saying about the South.
No worries. I would take a look into it, but in the South, they're real sweet people. They really are. And it's something that comes from Southern hospitality. At first, it might have been only towards the people, that they preferred, but now it's kind of an open-ended thing that everybody got a little Southern. I'm telling you, as long as you're in the right end of the South, like if you needed a home, food, these people would help you. And even out here Midwest, it ain't like that.
Yeah, even up north here, it's it's not the best
It's
either. So,
everybody for their own.
yeah, basically.
Well, shoot, I'll still be in the audience just listening in. So you have a great night, my man.
You too. Thanks. All right. Sorry about the not getting to the comments. I'll kind of go back and look at some of them and address them, but cool having a guest.